The Vorthak hive mind felt something it had not experienced in 3,000 years of conquest: confusion. The approach to the Sol system had begun like every other expansion. Long-range scouts had identified a promising system with abundant biomass, a young star, and what appeared to be a thriving ecosystem on the third planet. The crystalline entities had dispatched a standard consumption fleet, 300 bioships, more than enough to process any resistance and begin harvesting. What they found instead defied every behavioral pattern in their collective memory. Hive Commander Vexthul coordinated the fleet from his flagship, a living vessel the size of a small moon. His crystalline form pulsed with organic light as he processed tactical data from the approaching bioships. Everything about this system was wrong. The defending ships were small, ugly, and seemingly held together with primitive materials. They moved in chaotic patterns that violated every principle of efficient warfare. Most disturbing of all, they were accelerating at rates that should have liquefied any biological crew. Analysis, Vexthul commanded through the biolink that connected all Vorthak minds. Unknown species, designation human, came the response from the scout minds. Technology level appears primitive, but energy readings suggest significant defensive capabilities. Population density extremely high for a single world. The first engagement began as the Vorthak bioships entered the outer system. Human vessels swarmed them like angry insects, using tactics that made no logical sense. Instead of maintaining formation and engaging in proper battle line combat, they attacked from all directions simultaneously. A human ship rammed directly into the side of a Vorthak cruiser. The crystalline entities expected the ship to be destroyed by the impact, but somehow it survived and kept firing even as both vessels tumbled through space. Impossible, Vexthul pulsed. No organic being can survive those G-forces. But the humans kept doing impossible things. Their pilots pulled maneuvers that should have killed them. Their ships took damage that should have disabled them and continued fighting. Worst of all, they seemed to enjoy the experience. Communication intercepts from human vessels revealed something that disturbed the hive mind deeply. The humans were laughing. Contact on bearing 270 coming in fast. The human voice was excited rather than fearful. I see him. Watch this. Another voice followed by weapons fire and what the Vorthak translation systems identified as expressions of joy. The Vorthak had faced desperate last stands before. They had encountered species that fought bravely in the face of extinction, but they had never fought an enemy that treated mortal combat as entertainment. The battle moved toward Earth itself, and that was when the real nightmare began. The Vorthak bioships entered Earth's atmosphere expecting to begin the standard harvesting procedure. Instead, they found themselves fighting the planet itself. Earth's gravity was nearly twice galactic standard, strong enough to interfere with bioship maneuvering. The atmospheric pressure created turbulence that disrupted their coordination networks. Worst of all, the planet's aggressive ecosystem immediately began attacking the bioships as foreign invaders. Vexthul watched in amazement as Earth bacteria began consuming the outer hulls of his vessels. The bioships were designed to regenerate damage, but they could not regenerate faster than these. Aggressive microorganisms could consume them. Report, he commanded. Biological contamination spreading through bioship hulls, came the panicked response. Unknown organisms are attacking our vessels at the cellular level. Regeneration systems are being overwhelmed. But the worst was yet to come. Human ground forces had been waiting. As Vorthak bioships attempted to land and begin harvesting operations, they found themselves facing something unprecedented in 3,000 years of conquest. Prey that fought back effectively. The humans had studied Vorthak tactics from coalition records and prepared accordingly. They did not meet the bioships in open battle, where the Vorthak advantages in size and firepower would be decisive. Instead, they used what Captain Chen had called making the enemy's life miserable. Human soldiers emerged from hidden positions and attacked bioships with weapons that seemed designed to cause maximum damage and chaos rather than efficient destruction. They used biological weapons that targeted Vorthak bioship systems specifically, explosives that were hidden in seemingly innocent locations, and tactics that no civilized species would consider. A group of human soldiers actually boarded a grounded bioship and began fighting inside the vessel itself. The Vorthak defenders found themselves facing enemies who could function in conditions that should have been lethal, who treated severe injuries as minor inconveniences, and who seemed to consider the situation amusing rather than terrifying. Captain Sarah Chen led a boarding party into Vexthol's own flagship. The Hive commander watched through bioship sensors as the humans cut through sealed bulkheads, survived in atmospheric conditions that should have killed them, and fought their way toward the command center with determination that bordered on madness. Defensive response, Vexthol ordered. The bioship's internal defenses activated. Poisonous gases, crushing pressure changes, temperatures that ranged from freezing to scalding. The humans adapted to each challenge, using equipment and tactics that seemed improvised but effective. When Chen finally reached the command center, Vexthol faced her directly. The Hive commander was 3 times her size, armored in living crystal, and connected to the collective mind of billions of Vorthak entities. The human looked at him and grinned. "You must be the boss," she said casually, as if meeting a neighbor rather than an alien entity that had consumed thousands of worlds. "You cannot win," Vexthol stated through bioship translation systems. "We are perfect. We are efficient. We have never been defeated." "Yeah, that is your problem," Chen replied, checking the charge on her weapon. "You think you are perfect. But perfect things are brittle. They break when you hit them the right way." She activated a device that sent electromagnetic pulses through the bioship's nervous system. Vexthol felt the hive mind connection waver as interference disrupted the network that linked all Vorthak consciousness. For the first time in his existence, the hive commander experienced something he did not understand: isolation. Cut off from the collective mind, he was forced to think as an individual rather than part of a perfect whole. And individual thought brought something the Vorthak had never known: fear. "What are you?" he asked. Chen tilted her head, considering the question. "We are what happens when a death world spends 4 billion years trying to kill everything on it, and something survives anyway. We are what you get when prey decides to become predators." She moved closer, and Vexthol realized that despite her small size and primitive equipment, this human was the most dangerous thing he had ever encountered. "Here is what is going to happen." Chen continued conversationally. "You are going to order your fleet to retreat from Earth space. Then you are going to spread the word through your little hive mind network that humans are off limits. And if you are smart, you will stay away from any system where humans might show up." "We do not retreat," Vexthol stated, though his conviction was wavering. "We are apex predators." "No," Chen corrected. "You are apex predators, past tense. You have been hunting sheep for so long that you forgot what it is like to meet a wolf." She reactivated the electromagnetic device, and Vexthol felt the hive mind connection return. But now it brought something new: reports from across the fleet of bioships being boarded, damaged, and destroyed by humans who fought with a viciousness that defied all military logic. The humans were not trying to win efficiently. They were trying to make the Vorthak suffer. "This is impossible," Vexthol transmitted to the collective. "This species is wrong." "Yeah, we get that a lot," Chen agreed. "The universe kept trying to teach us how to die properly, but humans are terrible students. We just kept getting more stubborn instead." Through the hive mind network, Vexthol felt something that no Vorthak had experienced in 3 millennia: the desire to flee. The perfectly coordinated collective that had consumed thousands of worlds was coming apart under assault by a species that treated warfare as a combination of engineering, problem, and extreme sport. "Retreat," Vexthol ordered, the word feeling strange in his crystalline mind. "Signal fleet-wide withdrawal." "Smart choice," Chen said approvingly. "Oh, and one more thing. If you try this again, we will not stop at just making you retreat. Next time, we will hunt you down and show you what humans do to things that threaten our home." The Vorthak bioships began withdrawing from Earth space, their perfect formation dissolving into chaotic flight as human forces continued to harass them all the way to the edge of the system. As his flagship limped away from the impossible world, Vexthol sent a priority message through the hive mind network to every Vorthak entity in the galaxy. Species designation: human. Avoid at all costs. Classification: apex predator. Threat level: extinction event. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Vorthak Empire had found something more terrifying than themselves. The Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the New Eden system like dark birds of prey. Admiral Kethvar stood on his bridge, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on the main screen. It looked so peaceful, so vulnerable. "Begin scanning the planet," he ordered. "I want to know everything about their defenses." The scan results made him smile. 6 old human patrol ships hung in orbit, looking like toys next to his massive cruisers. The planetary shields were basic civilian models, designed to stop asteroids, not military weapons. The human settlements were spread across 3 continents with no heavy weapons visible anywhere. "Sir," Lieutenant Vextar reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet. They're asking us to identify ourselves." "Put it through." The main screen flickered, showing a middle-aged human woman with brown hair and worried eyes. She wore simple clothes that marked her as a civilian administrator. "This is Sarah Chen, administrator of New Eden Colony," the woman said. "You are in violation of our territorial space. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." Admiral Kethvar let her wait for a full minute before responding. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Third Fleet. Your planet now belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. You have 24 hours to surrender completely. Prepare your population for processing." The human woman's face went pale. "Processing? What do you mean?" "The strong will serve as workers. The intelligent will teach us your agricultural methods. The rest will be relocated as needed." He paused, enjoying the fear in her eyes. "Resistance will result in the destruction of your cities. Children first." The transmission ended. Admiral Kethvar turned to his bridge crew, feeling satisfied. Fear was an excellent tool for ensuring cooperation. What he did not see was Sarah Chen's expression after the screen went dark. Her fear had been real, but it quickly changed to something much more dangerous. Cold, focused anger. "Marcus," she called to her security chief. "They just threatened our children." Marcus Webb's jaw tightened. "Then they've signed their death warrant." Throughout the colony, the news spread quickly. Families gathered in their homes, holding their children close. But these were not the helpless farmers the Zephyrians expected. Many had military training. Others were engineers, scientists, and technicians who had helped build Earth's defenses. Dr. Elizabeth Torres, the colony's head scientist, worked frantically in her laboratory. To outsiders, she was studying plant genetics. In reality, she was a former weapons engineer who had designed some of Earth's most advanced military systems. Her laboratory contained equipment that could boost their communication signals far beyond what civilian systems should allow. "Sarah," she called over the intercom, "I'm ready to send the package." "Do it," Sarah replied. The message that left New Eden looked like a routine distress signal to any casual observer. But hidden in its frequency patterns and data streams was military-grade intelligence about the Zephyrian fleet. Ship types, weapon signatures, formation patterns, and, most importantly, proof that they had threatened human civilians. The message raced across space toward Earth and the outer human colonies. Within hours, it would reach every military commander in human space. The Zephyrians had just made their threat a public declaration of war against humanity's children. On his flagship, Admiral Kethvar felt pleased with himself. He began composing his report to High Command, describing how easily the humans had been intimidated. This would be recorded as a model conquest, something to be studied and repeated. "Sir," his sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting some unusual readings from the outer system." "What kind of readings?" "Gravitational distortions. Very faint but moving this way." Kethvar frowned. "Natural phenomena?" "Unknown, sir. The patterns are strange." The Admiral dismissed it with a wave of his hand. Probably just space debris or cosmic radiation. His attention was focused on the planet below and the easy victory it represented. But the sensor officer was right to be concerned. At the very edge of the system, space itself was beginning to ripple. Something was coming through hyperspace, something much larger than any ship the Zephyrians had ever seen. On Earth, Admiral Victoria Reyes stood in the command center of the orbital station Olympus. Around her, dozens of officers coordinated the largest military deployment in recent human history. The main display showed ships converging from across human space. "Status report," she ordered. 37 ships and counting, Captain Morrison reported. "The Retribution is leading the advance force. Captain Stone reports ready for immediate deployment." Admiral Reyes nodded. Marcus Stone was exactly the right man for this mission. His family had been killed in an alien raid 5 years ago. Since then, he had dedicated his life to ensuring no other families suffered the same fate. "Signal all ships," she said. "Operation Shepherd's Wrath is now active. Rules of engagement: complete destruction of all hostile forces. No quarter given to anyone who threatens human civilians." The message went out to every ship in the fleet. On the bridge of the dreadnought Retribution, Captain Stone read it with grim satisfaction. Behind him, his crew prepared for battle with the efficiency of people who had trained for this moment their entire careers. "Navigation," Stone said. "Set course for New Eden. Maximum speed." "Sir," his tactical officer said. "Long-range scans show 12 Zephyrian cruisers. Heavy armor and weapons." "Good," Stone replied. "I'd hate for this to be too easy." The human fleet moved through hyperspace like a pack of wolves responding to a threat against their territory. Each ship carried weapons designed specifically for ship-to-ship combat. More importantly, each carried crews who had grown up hearing stories about alien raids on human colonies. They knew exactly what they were fighting for. Back on New Eden, the colonists continued their preparations. Emergency shelters were stocked and checked. Children were quietly moved to the most secure locations. Communication arrays were hidden and backup systems activated. Sarah Chen stood in the colony's command center, watching the Zephyrian ships through their telescopes. The aliens were taking their time, confident in their overwhelming advantage. They had no idea that their every move was being recorded and transmitted to incoming human forces. "How long until help arrives?" Marcus asked. "Soon," Sarah replied, checking her encrypted communicator. "Very soon." Admiral Kethvar spent the day planning his victory celebration. He would take the best parts of the planet for himself, maybe even build a palace where the main human city now stood. The High Command would promote him for sure after such an efficient conquest. As the local sun set over New Eden, he looked out at the planet's cities twinkling in the darkness. Tomorrow those lights would dim as his forces took control. The humans would learn what it meant to defy the Zephyrian Empire. But at the edge of the system, space itself began to tear open. Dark shapes emerged from hyperspace, ships so advanced they barely registered on Zephyrian sensors. The human fleet had arrived, and they had come not to rescue but to eliminate a threat. Admiral Kethvar had made 2 critical mistakes. First, he had threatened human children. Second, he had given them 24 hours to prepare. He was about to discover why both of those mistakes would be his last. The first sign that something was wrong came from the Zephyrian sensor station at 0347 local time. Sensor operator Zeklon had been watching the quiet readings from the outer system when his display suddenly filled with contact signatures. "Admiral," he called across the bridge of the Dark Talon. Multiple contacts emerging from hyperspace. Range outer system boundary. Admiral Kethvar rolled out of his sleeping alcove and rushed to the bridge. His red eyes focused on the tactical display, and what he saw there made his blood run cold. 37 ships had appeared as if from nowhere, and they were moving toward New Eden at incredible speed. "Ship classifications?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. But sir, some of these ships are massive, larger than our dreadnoughts." Kethvar studied the display. The human fleet was still hours away, but even at this distance he could tell these were not exploration vessels or cargo ships. These were warships built for one purpose only. "Communications," he ordered. "Send a message to the lead ship. Tell them they are interfering with a legitimate military operation and must withdraw immediately." The response came back in clear Galactic Common, spoken by a voice that carried no emotion at all. "This is Captain Marcus Stone of the Earth Defense Force ship Retribution. You have threatened human civilians. Withdraw from this system immediately or be destroyed." Admiral Kethvar's mandibles clicked with anger. "Tell this Captain Stone that he is outnumbered. 12 Zephyrian cruisers against 37 smaller human ships. The mathematics are not in his favor." The reply came back even colder than before. "Admiral, you are not facing 37 smaller ships. You are facing humanity's terror fleet. These vessels were designed for one purpose: to eliminate threats to human civilians. You have exactly one opportunity to withdraw. Take it." Kethvar looked around his bridge. His officers were watching him, waiting for orders. The Zephyrian Third Fleet had never lost a battle. Their ships were among the most powerful in known space. Surely these humans were bluffing. "All ships," he announced on the fleet channel. Assume battle formation. Prepare to engage the human fleet when they enter weapons range. As the hours passed and the human ships drew closer, the Zephyrian fleet prepared for battle. Gun crews loaded their heaviest weapons. Shield generators were brought to full power. Fighter squadrons prepared for launch. But Admiral Kethvar began to notice troubling details. His long-range sensors could not get clear readings on the human ships. They seemed to bend sensor waves around them, making accurate targeting difficult. Even more concerning, the ships moved with a precision that suggested computer-assisted formation, flying far beyond what most species could achieve. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human fleet is slowing. Range 1 million kilometers. On the main screen, the human ships became visible as points of light against the stars. But as they watched, some of those points began to fade and disappear. Where did they go?" Kethvar demanded. "Unknown, sir. 15 ships have vanished from our sensors." Captain Stone stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the Zephyrian fleet through his ship's advanced sensors. The alien vessels were exactly what intelligence had predicted. Heavily armed, well-shielded, but using technology that was decades behind human advances. "Tactical," he said quietly. "What's our assessment?" Commander Sarah Kim, his tactical officer, studied her displays. "Their ships are powerful but outdated. Standard energy shields, conventional weapons, basic sensor arrays. They have no stealth capability and no quantum defensive systems." "Good. Signal the stealth destroyers. Begin Phase 1. Throughout the human fleet, orders were passed along secure channels. This was not going to be a fair fight. Earth's military doctrine had been shaped by centuries of warfare, first against themselves, then against hostile alien species. They had learned that mercy toward enemies who threatened civilians was not virtue, it was a guarantee that more innocents would die. Later, the 15 ships that had vanished were humanity's stealth destroyers, vessels that could bend light and sensor energy around them. They moved like ghosts through space, approaching the Zephyrian fleet from multiple angles. Admiral Kethvar felt increasingly uneasy as minutes passed with no contact from the missing human ships. "Continue scanning," he ordered. "They have to be somewhere." That was when the first Zephyrian cruiser died. The ZNS Bloodhunter simply exploded without warning. One moment it was holding position in the fleet formation, the next it was an expanding ball of plasma and debris. No weapon signature, no incoming missile trail, nothing. "What happened?" Kethvar shouted. Before anyone could answer, a second ship died. The Star Ripper broke apart as something tore through its hull from stern to bow, cutting it in half like a knife through paper. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," the Admiral ordered. "Return fire on any target." But there were no targets. The human ships responsible for the attacks remained invisible. The Zephyrian fleet began firing wildly into empty space, hoping to hit something. Anything. A third cruiser, the Night Stalker, suddenly listed to one side as explosions ripped through its engine compartments. Emergency signals flooded the communication channels as the ship's crew reported massive hull breaches and system failures. Captain Stone watched the chaos with satisfaction. "Signal all ships. Phase 2. The remaining 22 human vessels opened fire simultaneously, but these were not the crude energy weapons the Zephyrians expected. Quantum torpedoes warped space itself as they traveled, making them impossible to intercept. Plasma cannon beams cut through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. Gravity manipulation weapons created artificial singularities that crushed enemy hulls from the inside. The Zephyrian fleet, which had seemed so powerful minutes before, suddenly found itself outgunned by technology it could barely understand. "Return fire," Admiral Cuthbert screamed. "All weapons." The Zephyrian ships tried to fight back. Their energy cannons lashed out at the human fleet, but most of their shots missed as human ships moved with impossible agility. The few hits that connected were absorbed by energy shields far more advanced than anything the Zephyrians had seen. In contrast, every human weapon found its target. The ZNS Paingiver lost its entire forward section to a quantum torpedo. The flesh render was disabled when a gravity weapon collapsed its main power core. One by one, the mighty Zephyrian Third Fleet was being systematically destroyed. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "the humans are transmitting on all frequencies." "Put it through." Captain Stone's voice filled the bridge, calm and professional. "Admiral Kethvar, you threatened to kill human children. You chose to target civilians who could not defend themselves. This is what happens to those who make that choice." Admiral Kethvar looked around his bridge. Half his fleet was already destroyed or disabled. His own ship was taking heavy damage as human weapons pounded his shields. In the space of 17 minutes, his certainty of victory had become a nightmare of defeat. "We surrender," he transmitted desperately. "We withdraw our claims on this system." The response was immediate and final. "You should have thought of that before you threatened our children." No quarter given. The battle continued. The Zephyrian Third Fleet, which had entered the system expecting to terrorize helpless farmers, found itself facing the deadliest military force in known space. Ship after ship died under the relentless human assault. Admiral Kethvar realized with growing horror that this was not a battle, it was an execution. The humans had not come to rescue their colonists. They had come to send a message to anyone who might think about threatening human civilians. That message was being written in the wreckage of his fleet. Admiral Kethvar made the worst mistake of his life when he saw his fleet being destroyed. Instead of accepting defeat, he decided to take the human colonists down with him. "All remaining ships," he broadcast on the emergency channel, "move to planetary orbit. If we cannot win, we will make sure these humans pay the price for their interference." The 5 surviving Zephyrian cruisers broke formation and raced toward New Eden. Their plan was simple and brutal. Use the planet as a shield and threaten to bombard the cities unless the human fleet withdrew. Captain Stone watched the alien ships flee toward the planet. His jaw tightened as he realized what they intended to do. "Sir," Commander Kim reported, "the Zephyrian ships are taking position over the main population centers. They're powering up their bombardment weapons. Are they really that stupid?" Stone muttered. Then louder, "Signal all ships. The enemy has just escalated this from a rescue mission to total warfare. New rules of engagement. Eliminate all threats by any means necessary." Throughout the human fleet, the mood changed from professional efficiency to cold anger. Threatening military ships was one thing. Threatening civilian populations was something else entirely. The humans had tried to give the Zephyrians a chance to surrender. Now there would be no mercy. Admiral Kethvar positioned his flagship, the Dark Talon, directly over New Eden's capital city. Below him he could see the lights of 50,000 human civilians going about their lives, unaware that death hung over them. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he ordered. Captain Stone's face appeared on the main screen, and Kethvar was surprised by what he saw there. The human's expression was not angry or frightened. It was the cold, calculating look of a predator that had just seen its prey make a fatal mistake. "Captain Stone," Kethvar said, trying to sound confident, "your fleet will withdraw immediately, or we will begin bombardment of the civilian population centers, starting with the schools and hospitals." Stone was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was so cold it seemed to freeze the air around it. "Admiral, you have just made this personal. You are no longer facing the Earth Defense Force. You are now facing humanity itself, and humanity does not negotiate with those who threaten children." The transmission ended. Admiral Kethvar felt a chill run down his spine. Something in the human's tone suggested that threatening the colonists had not saved his fleet. It had doomed them to something much worse than simple destruction. Captain Stone turned to his bridge crew. "Ladies and gentlemen, the enemy has chosen to use human civilians as shields. This changes everything." Commander Kim signaled the boarding teams. "We're going to take those ships intact and make sure their crews understand the mistake they've made." "Sir," Kim said carefully, "taking ships intact while they're holding civilian populations hostage is extremely dangerous." "Yes, it is," Stone agreed. "For them." The human fleet began moving in ways that defied conventional space combat doctrine. Instead of maintaining safe distances and engaging with long-range weapons, they closed in on the Zephyrian ships like wolves surrounding trapped prey. The stealth destroyers that had been invisible throughout the battle suddenly appeared right next to the alien cruisers. Before the Zephyrians could react, the human ships began deploying something they had never seen before. Boarding pods that could cut through hulls like they were made of soft metal. "Sir," Lieutenant Vextar shouted on the Dark Talon's bridge. "Human boarding craft are attaching to our hull. They're cutting through the armor." Admiral Kethvar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. "That's impossible. Our hull armor is 2 meters thick. They're not using conventional cutting tools, sir. It looks like some kind of molecular disruption device." Throughout the Zephyrian fleet, alarms began sounding as human boarding parties cut their way into ship after ship. The alien crews had trained for ship-to-ship combat, But they had never faced the kind of close-quarters fighting that humans had perfected over centuries of warfare. The first boarding team to reach a Zephyrian bridge encountered something that would haunt their nightmares for the rest of their lives. Humans in powered armor that moved like liquid death through their corridors. The human soldiers were not just technologically superior, they fought with a focused intensity that no Zephyrian had ever seen. Sergeant Elena Rodriguez led the team boarding the ZNS Skull Crusher. Her powered armor made her nearly invulnerable to Zephyrian weapons, while her own weapons could punch through alien body armor like paper. But what truly terrified the Zephyrians was the way she and her team moved through their ship. These humans fought like they had been born for war. They coordinated their movements with perfect precision, anticipated enemy tactics before they were implemented, and showed no mercy to anyone who stood between them and their objectives. Bridge secured, Rodriguez reported over her comm system. Enemy commander requesting terms of surrender. Negative, came Captain Stone's reply. No terms. Disable all weapon systems and prepare the ship for towing. One by one, the Zephyrian ships fell to human boarding parties. The aliens discovered that their superior numbers meant nothing when facing humans who had trained for exactly this kind of combat. Each human soldier seemed to be worth 10 Zephyrian warriors. Admiral Kethvar watched his fleet being systematically captured. His own ship shuddered as human cutting tools began working on the hull. He could hear weapons fire in the corridors outside his bridge as his security teams tried desperately to stop the invaders. "Sir," Vextar said quietly, "perhaps we should consider surrender?" "Never," Kethvar snarled. "We are Zephyrian warriors. We do not yield to inferior species." The bridge doors exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris came a figure in black powered armor, moving with deadly grace. The human soldier was smaller than any Zephyrian, but the aliens on the bridge backed away in terror. Captain Stone entered behind the soldier, his weapon drawn but not immediately threatening. He looked around the bridge with professional interest as if evaluating the alien technology. "Admiral Kethvar," he said calmly, "you threatened to kill human children. You used civilian populations as shields. You have violated every rule of civilized warfare." Kethvar tried to draw his sidearm, but the human soldier moved faster than his eyes could track. His weapon went flying across the bridge and he found himself facing the business end of a human plasma rifle. "You will pay for this," the Admiral snarled. "The Zephyrian Empire will not forget this attack." Captain Stone stepped closer, and Kethvar finally saw the full coldness in the human's eyes. This was not the look of a soldier following orders. This was the look of someone who had lost everything to alien raiders and had spent years preparing for this moment. "Admiral," Stone said quietly, "let me explain something to you. When you threatened those civilians down there, you didn't just attack New Eden, you attacked humanity itself. Every human in the galaxy is now personally invested in making sure you and your people understand the consequences of that choice." He gestured to the tactical display, which showed the complete destruction of the Zephyrian Third Fleet. "Your ships are captured or destroyed. Your crews are prisoners. And this entire engagement has been broadcast to every corner of known space." Kethvar looked at the display and felt his legs go weak. Not a single Zephyrian ship remained operational. The mighty Third Fleet had been eliminated in less than 2 hours. "Impossible," he whispered. "No," Captain Stone corrected. "Inevitable. You chose to hunt the Helpless, Admiral. Now you know what happens when the Helpless call their family for help." The Admiral of the once proud Zephyrian Third Fleet found himself in chains, watching his bridge being secured by human soldiers. Outside the viewports, he could see the lights of New Eden still twinkling peacefully in the darkness. The farmers were safe. The children were safe. And across the galaxy, every species would soon learn exactly what happened to those who threatened them. The silence in the Zephyrian High Command chamber was absolute. Fleet Admiral Zorex High stood before the massive viewing screen, watching the recorded footage of the Third Fleet's destruction for the 5th time. Each viewing made the reality harder to accept. "Play it again," he ordered. "Sir," his aide said carefully, "we have analyzed the recording extensively. The results do not change." But Zorex High watched anyway as the human ships appeared from nowhere and systematically destroyed 12 of the Empire's finest cruisers. He watched human technology that their scientists claimed was impossible. He watched Admiral Kethvar's fleet disappear in less than 2 hours. "How many survivors?" he asked. "None, sir." The humans took no prisoners among the ship crews. Admiral Kethvar and his bridge officers are being held for war crimes tribunals. War crimes? They attacked military targets. The aide hesitated. Sir, the humans are claiming that threatening civilian populations constitutes a war crime. They are broadcasting the trial proceedings across all known space. Zorax High's claws scraped against his command throne. The humans were not just winning, they were making a public spectacle of Zephyrian defeat. Every species in the galaxy would see the mighty Third Fleet reduced to scrap metal by farmers and their protectors. Across the galaxy, the message was indeed spreading. On a dozen worlds, alien species that had lived in fear of Zephyrian raids gathered around communication screens to watch the trial of Admiral Kethvar. The proceedings were being broadcast in real time from the human ship Retribution. Admiral Kethvar stood in chains before a human tribunal. Captain Stone sat at the judge's table, flanked by other human officers. The proceedings were formal, professional, and absolutely merciless. Admiral Kethvar, Captain Stone read from a datapad, you are charged with threatening civilian populations, planning to enslave non-combatants, and using civilians as military shields. How do you plead? I do not recognize the authority of this court. Kethvar snarled. The Zephyrian Empire does not bow to inferior species. Your plea is noted as not guilty. The evidence will now be presented. What followed was a complete breakdown of the Zephyrian attack plan. The humans had recorded everything, the original intelligence gathering, the fleet movements, the direct threats against children and civilians. They played Admiral Kethvar's own words back to him, his threat to destroy cities and kill children first. The evidence was overwhelming. More importantly, it was being broadcast to every corner of known space. Species that had never heard of humanity were watching a small group of humans systematically dismantle one of the galaxy's most feared military forces. On New Eden, life was slowly returning to normal. The colonists emerged from their shelters to find the human fleet in orbit, standing guard. Sarah Chen stood in the colony's main square, watching children play while their parents worked in the fields. Any word on when the fleet will leave? Marcus Webb asked, joining her at the observation platform. They're not leaving, Sarah replied. Admiral Reyes sent word. New Eden is now under permanent military protection. Any ship that approaches this system uninvited will be considered hostile. Marcus nodded with satisfaction. Good. Maybe now we can focus on growing food instead of hiding from raiders. But the impact of the Battle of New Eden reached far beyond one small farming colony. In the Zephyrian capital, panic was spreading through the government. 3 more Zephyrian fleets had been recalled from planned operations, their commanders suddenly reluctant to risk contact with human forces. Sir, Intelligence Director Vector reported to Fleet Admiral Zorax High, we are receiving reports from across our territory. Rebel groups on 17 worlds have begun open uprisings. They claim the destruction of the Third Fleet proves the Empire is vulnerable. Zorax High slammed his fist on his command throne. Send the 2nd and 4th fleets to suppress the rebellions. Sir, the fleet commanders are requesting additional intelligence on human military capabilities before engaging in any operations. What? Admiral Thezavar of the 2nd Fleet specifically requests clarification on whether humans have established any colonies or interests in the, systems where rebellions are occurring. The truth hit Zorax High like a physical blow. His fleet commanders were afraid. The destruction of the Third Fleet had been so complete, so overwhelming, that his own officers no longer trusted their ability to fight humans. On Earth, Admiral Victoria Reyes stood in her office reading reports from across human space. The response to the New Eden operation had exceeded all expectations. Admiral, Captain Morrison said, entering with a datapad, we're receiving applications for colony protection from 16 non-human species. They're offering trade agreements and mutual defense pacts in exchange for protection from Zephyrian raids. Interesting, Admiral Reyes mused. What about our own colonies? Applications for new settlements have increased by 300%. Apparently, word has spread that attacking human civilians results in immediate and overwhelming military response. Admiral Reyes smiled. The Battle of New Eden had accomplished something no amount of diplomacy could have achieved. Humanity had established itself as the protector of the innocent in this region of space. Captain Stone stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching New Eden through the main viewports. The planet looked peaceful now, its cities safe under the protection of human weapons. In the weeks since the battle, not a single hostile ship had approached the system. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "incoming message from Zephyrian High Command. Put it through." The image that appeared on the main screen showed Fleet Admiral Zorex High, his face showing the strain of recent events. When he spoke, his voice lacked the arrogance that had characterized previous Zephyrian communications. "Captain Stone," he said carefully, "the Zephyrian Empire wishes to discuss a ceasefire agreement regarding human colonial territories." Stone studied the alien commander for a long moment. "Go on. We propose a formal recognition of human territorial claims and a non-aggression pact regarding civilian populations." "That's a start," Stone replied, "but it's not enough. What else do you require?" "Reparations for every species you've enslaved, freedom for every civilian you've taken captive, and a guarantee that any Zephyrian ship that approaches a human world uninvited will be destroyed without warning." The Zephyrian admiral's face went pale. "Those terms are extensive." "Admiral," Stone said quietly, "you targeted farmers and children. You threatened to kill innocents for your own gain. These terms are generous compared to what you deserve." The communication ended. Captain Stone knew that the Zephyrians would agree to the terms. They had no choice. The destruction of the Third Fleet had shown the galaxy that humanity would go to any length to protect its people. In the months that followed, the galaxy changed. Species that had lived in fear of raiders and slavers began to flourish under human protection. Trade routes reopened as merchant ships sailed under the protection of human escorts. Colonies that had been abandoned due to alien attacks began to see new settlers arriving. The Zephyrian Empire, meanwhile, found itself fighting rebellions on dozens of worlds. Their military, once feared throughout the galaxy, was now seen as vulnerable. Fleet commanders refused missions that might bring them into contact with human forces. On New Eden, the harvest season brought record crops. Children played in fields that were no longer threatened by alien raiders. Families who had fled to this distant world seeking peace had finally found it. Sarah Chen stood in her office reading reports from across human space. Colony after colony reported the same thing. Applications for settlement were pouring in from species that wanted to live under human protection. "We've become the galaxy's guardians," she said to Marcus Webb, who was reviewing security reports. "Good," Marcus replied. "Better us than the alternative." Through her window, Sarah could see the lights of human ships in orbit, standing watch over the peaceful world below. The message was clear to anyone who might threaten these civilians: humanity protects its own. The galaxy had learned a simple lesson at New Eden. Farmers might seem helpless. Children might appear defenseless. Peaceful colonists might look like easy targets. But behind every human civilian stood the deadliest military force in known space, ready to show no mercy to those who threatened the innocent. The hunt for the helpless was over. The predators had become the prey.